Okay, in this video we're going to then begin to look at, in some more detail and in more examples, how we go about solving an equation that has a variable on both sides. In the introduction to this lesson, we did talk about our strategy of to the left, moving all the variables, or always moving the variables to the left side of the equal sign and the constants or the numbers to the right side of the equal sign. So if we were to use that strategy here, let's just rewrite the equation. 10 minus 4x is equal to negative 9x. Then we're going to add, I'm not going to do that because our strategy is to the left. Although please make sure you understand that there are more than one way of going about this, but I'm going to keep my variables on the left, just as a matter of principle, and it makes life a little bit simpler sometimes. So we end up with 10, then negative 4 plus 9 is plus 5x. And on the right side again, when we add two opposites, we always get 0. From here, I can subtract 10 on both sides, and on the left side I get 5x. On the right side, negative 10. Now it's pretty clear. We divide by 5 on each side, and so x is equal to negative 2. Okay, so you don't have to use the to the left strategy, but that's the way I'm going to focus on, and it gives you one way that always works. It may add an additional step sometimes it may be quicker than doing it other ways. In the next example, it's very important that we pay attention to what we have here on the Alright, so I'll rewrite the problem. 3 times 3x minus 4 is equal to 1/4 times 32x plus 56. The left side is pretty straightforward. We're simply going to distribute. 3 times 3x, we get 9x. 3 times negative 4, we get negative 12. Now, what to do with the 1/4 on the right side? Well, it turns out in this particular case, it might be more simple to think of this as, instead of multiplying by 1/4, we're going to distribute a dividing by 4 to both of these terms inside the parentheses. So we're going to think of the first as dividing 32x by 4, and that's going to give me 8x. Then I'm going to divide 56 by 4, and that's going to give me 14. So it happens to work well here because both 32 and 56 are divisible by 4. If they weren't, we'd get some fractions in there, and we might want to deal with this in a slightly different manner. But as it stands, we can distribute that dividing by 4 to both the 32x and the 56. At this point, we have what we've seen before, an equation with variables on both sides. I'm going to use my to the left strategy first to subtract 8x on both sides, and that leaves me with x minus 12 is equal to 14. Then I'm going to add 12 on both sides, and I end up with x is equal to 26. Okay, so that's a strategy we can use in some cases when we have fractions outside of parentheses. Think of it as dividing instead of multiplying by. But there are other ways of going about that, and as they come up, we'll talk about them. In the next, or at this point, I'll continue with 3 more examples. We'll scroll up, so if you need to rewind, repeat, or stop the video and take a look at those solutions, go ahead. In a second, I will scroll up and do some more. Okay, so here I want to look at 2 more examples of solving equations with variables on both sides. In one example, involves distribution, and the other one is a more simple case. But in both cases, I'm going to use the strategies that we just discussed in these videos. Now, the first thing that I want to do, obviously in equation number 1, is I'm going to rewrite the equation, and then I'm going to use my to the left strategy, which means I want to subtract a 3x from the right side so that it goes away from there. And I'm going to have negative 2x minus 3x, which is negative 5x, is equal to 10 on the right side. And then I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5. Make sure you divide by negative 5 there. And so x is going to equal negative 2. So that is a strategy. That is our strategy applied to equation 1. All right, in equation 2, again, we have fractions outside of parentheses, and so let's talk about again how we're going to go about resolving that issue. Okay, so if we think about the 1/2 on the outside as distributing division in this case, so I'm going to distribute a dividing by 2 to both the 6h and the negative 4. And it works out well because both of those are even numbers. And so I'm going to divide 6h by 2, and I get 3h. And then I'm going to divide negative 4 by 2, and so I get 2. So that's like 1/2 of 6h is 3h. 1/2 of negative 4 is negative 2. Then on the right side, we'll leave that as it is temporarily. We have negative 5h plus 1. If we use our to the left strategy here, we're going to add 5h to both sides. And so 3h plus 5h gives me 8h minus 2, and that's going to equal 1. Then I'm going to add 2 on both sides, and I end up with 8h is equal to 3. Divide by 8, divide by 8, and h is equal to 3/8. Okay, since we started with a fraction in the problem, my policy is to end up with a fraction in the answer if it's not a whole number. And so here are at least 4 examples of solving equations with variables on both sides of the equal sign. And some of them involve distributing, especially distributing with fractions, and others are more simple than that. So that is these are the first types of problems that we should be able to solve in this section.